Just make it legible.
Another pen.
Yeah, thanks Kevin for hosting an event like this.
You're welcome.
If you guys know Kevin, you'll know that he is very much education minded and does a lot with trying to help you guys improve the way you farm. And that's definitely a good thing. And we could all use some help that way. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about, well, first off, my name is Ryan Oehler, like Kevin said. I'm the territory manager for Ag Leader for the state of Indiana. So I work with dealers like Kevin and their customers. Most of my experience, what I'll talk about, comes from working, riding along with customers, some of our product testers, guys like Kevin, and then from my own farm. I tend to be more of a down-to-earth, talk about things that happen on the farm. So that's what you'll see a lot today. It's just kind of how our customers are using the equipment and the data. And what I'm talking about here is mostly brand neutral. So whether you have Ag Leader or any other brand, the things I'm talking about would apply to you. So yeah, so I've kind of broken this into three different areas that I've defined. The first one is field operations. So kind of more of a logistics while you're in the field and ways that you can improve how you do field operations is the first category there. The second one is quick decision support. And so I define this as something that I can get information, reports, maps, or whatever within 2 or 3 button pushes. Just real quick, very usable type of stuff. Sometimes in the field, sometimes the next day, but fairly in-season type of information and how guys are doing that. And then the last one, the high-powered decision support. That is, as it sounds, it's probably not as quick and easy to get to. It takes a little more digging, a little more high-powered software, maybe working with a consultant or an agronomist to get to this type of stuff, but that's kind of another use of data there. So those are the 3 categories I'm going to talk about this morning. Fair enough? Okay. So first one, field operations. And this comes from my own experience. I've got 4 sons, and the oldest 3 are teenage years now, and they're starting to get into, well, some of them have been in the farm operation for several years now, but when they started, these guys grew up with auto steer, and unlike myself, where I grew up full board plowing and all sorts of field tillage work without auto steer, you tend to get pretty good at steering, and your depth perception and all that works pretty well. They didn't have that growing up. They were auto steered from the beginning, which is fine, except when they got along the field edge. And so they didn't do so great. You see the spray boom here and the light pole there. Grandpa was always complaining about either they're hitting stuff at the edge of the field, scratching up the side of it, or they're leaving way too much of a gap, and you got all sorts of problems coming out of that. So, of course, they've gotten better, their skills have improved, but something that we did to really help them out, and this could apply to any operator that's maybe a little bit less experienced. We used our guidance tools to, number one, give them guidance along the edge of the field, so auto steering along the edge of the field, which made them very accurate and put them right in the right spot. But then also giving them guidance lines in a field like this, not so clear which way to farm this field, but giving them guidance lines that would get them back and forth in the field too, all with really accurate results. And so it takes a little bit of, I guess not too much management, but you do have to have some good boundaries to do this, and you have to have some A/B lines. And so what we do on our farm is we've run, I would call high accuracy field boundaries. And once you do that, our displays, this is an in-command go display here, but the blue line here is the field boundary, and then the white line that you see here is guidance generated from that field boundary. So assuming I've got an accurate field boundary, I can trust the system to drive me all along a ditch or fence row or anything that way, and keep my equipment out of the fence without too much of a gap, and therefore we get better results at the end of the day. So that's something that we've used on our farm that's made a huge improvement. You could put this in the data category because I'm making good boundaries and I'm using those boundaries, but it's a real world field use of data. Make sense, Kevin? You agree with that? This is what it looks like from a perspective view. Again, the blue line is the boundary and the white line is the guidance line off of that boundary. So it's simply going to auto steer right along that field edge there. You'll notice we've got a setting in here in our system that I can turn up smoothing a little bit. You'll notice my boundary is a little bit jagged and the steering doesn't have to be quite that jagged, so I smooth it a little bit. That's just a setting in the system that I recommend. This is how we ran our boundaries on our farm, and you'll find all sorts of variations of this. You can see the white GPS receiver here. We mounted it here so that the guy driving it could really sight in and drive accurately where that boundary is going to be recorded. You can, I've seen guys mount it on the roof of the machine and just put an offset in and do it that way. All sorts of ways to do this. I do recommend having some visual to line up with as you drive. Some guys will use, the tires as the edge here. I've heard of guys putting a marker bolted onto the bumper here and sticking out on the edge. Depends on how much brush and stuff you have if you want to get away from it so you're not scratching up the side of the vehicle. So lots of different options that way. But the key with this is that you need to be able to drive accurately where you want to record that boundary. That's absolute key, because we're pretty particular about where that first row of corn gets planted, and if you want to have that accurate, then you need to drive accurate with that boundary. So my experience to you, just a tip that we learned on that. So there are other ways to get accurate boundaries. We've got software tools that will take an RTK planted map, which is a pretty accurate map, and it will automatically trace a boundary around that map and give you this type of boundary. Good, I would say second best to actually driving it still at this point. There's just some details and nuances that can kind of pop up with the software that you at least, if you're going to let the software trace it, you at least need to verify it, check the corners, make sure it didn't cut corners, things like that. So, but a lot of options here. Boundaries, and I don't care what system you have, field boundaries are a foundational data piece, whether you're talking about high-powered data crunching or in-field use like this. If you don't have boundaries, you need to figure out a way to get them, and if you can, do high-accuracy boundaries. Keep in mind, the signal that you're using here is a big deal. If I'm using loss on my farm, then high accuracy boundaries is not useful, because that signal will drift enough that I can't do the boundary guidance like I just showed you. So on the Ag Leader side of things, you'd want a TerraStar or RTK to do this, or else you might be wasting your time a little bit there. Something that we do in our steering system that is very useful for this type of guidance is we allow the system to move tighter or further away from the boundary. So right here I've told it to move 12 inches away from the boundary. And so if the guy that ran the boundary, or let's say I'm planting and I've got maybe a Kinsey planter with a transmission hanging out there, and I just need a little more room from that fence, I can just real easily punch in those 12 inches or 8 inches or whatever I need to, and it'll just move me away from that boundary, whatever distance there, all the way around. Vice versa, I can go the other way. I can crowd over and move past that boundary tighter to the edge of the field. So some nice options there. As far as when you're out in the field, the way we did it again, and there's more than one way to do this, but when we were running the boundaries with our Ranger, We also went ahead and struck our AB lines while we were out there. And that was very helpful. The way we did it, we set an AB line right on the edge of the field, right where the boundary is, saved that line, and then we shifted that and resaved it for each different pass that we're going to make. So on our farm, the corn planter and the soybean planter are the same width, so they use the same line. And then we had another one for the sprayer, and then another one for the combine. They're all the same guidance line, they're just shifted different amounts. So while we had time, the heat wasn't on, we're not panicked trying to get the field going. It's in the middle of winter, plenty of time to think through this. We went ahead and shifted and saved. And then the end result, we named it, the AB lines, we named one plant and spray. And so the guy in the corn planter or the soybean planter, all he has to do is go start the field, hit load pattern, and hit the plant guidance line, and he's off and running. So a couple 3-button pushes, not much to think about, not much to worry about, and he's right on the right spot there. Also spray. So that's just the system that we used. It worked really well for us. Just some tips that way. We do have a guy on our farm that is AB line happy. He likes to go in and create AB lines, and the system automatically saves them. So at the end of this year, I had the 3 that we created, plus 4 more that you can see them scattered throughout the field there. So you got to watch those guys, make sure that they know, don't go to a new AB line, just hit load pattern and load what's already there and stick to it. We are tinkering around with, on our system, and we don't have this capability yet, but setting a default guidance line per operation so that when you load the field, it just automatically loads that AB line and you don't have to worry about pushing those buttons. We're not quite there yet, but that's something that would help with this situation a little bit more. All right, shifting gears here a little bit, still in field operations, but still on boundaries. One thing that I like about having field boundaries is we get this area remaining information on the display. So it tells me how many acres and how much percentage I have left to finish that field. We use this a ton on our farm just for calculating product, and it's starter fertilizer on the planter is the main thing that we're calculating there. Do I have enough to finish? Get the tender there, things like that. So again, field boundaries enables things like this. Very helpful in the field. So I'd encourage you to get those field boundaries in again. Different type of infield use here. This is variety tracking. And a lot of systems will do this. Here, a guy was comparing 2 different nitrogen programs. And so in our system, it will compare varieties, or you can kind of finagle it to do something like this. So you do the map in the spring or the summer, then you put it in the combine and it automatically tracks that. So this is what the combine view looks like. It's showing me my trial here, and it shows me the yield result on the fly as I'm harvesting that field. So very good, very helpful information. Not high-powered type of analysis, but it's good, quick stuff here. Gives me a good idea, and something that's very useful. Obviously, you have to have variety map like what we see in the side here in order to get variety tracking information. So the blue and the red here represent different varieties that have been planted. And so then it just uses that as a reference. And then when I go to harvest, it's going to automatically track those different varieties there. There's a lot of, so SMS is a software program that we make. It is able to do a lot of translating type of work where, say I've got an Ag Leader in a planter and I've got a Case IH yield monitor. We can use that software to convert that planting map from the Ag Leader over to a case for variety tracking in the case monitor, or reverse that, or talk deer or precision planting or raven. We can translate and mix and match about any of those. So It does take a pit stop into the software and some thumb drive or wireless data type of work to do that. So it's not quite as quick and easy, but it does work. So know that we've come a long way to where we can do that type of stuff now. All right, so switching out of field mode and more into this quick decision support category. This is a report that Agfinity will generate. We call it a comparison report, and it is yield by variety. And then I can set filters here. The bottom result here is that it shows me my variety product and the yield resulting from that. And I can set my filters. In this case, I've set it to all fields. So I'm looking at some pretty decent acreage and comparing that all across maybe my whole farm. I can also go down to one field and narrow it down, zoom in a bit more, and see that same report. But this is 2 to 3 button pushes to get to this type of information on a laptop, a tablet, or my phone. So that's why I put it in this quick, useful type of category here. Very simple to get to that, and very useful reports. Similar to this, we've got yield by population. So over here, I'm looking at planted population, and then again, yield result from that. Same thing, same filters, just a different comparison there. So again, quick, useful information. Obviously, if you don't have accurate variety maps, or you didn't do a good job of putting the correct products in with the planter, then you're going to get some garbage reports, right? So you got to be mindful of getting good data in those planting maps. That's the foundation for this. If you want good, the whole garbage in, garbage out type of thing. So be mindful of that.
So on this one here, I can just by a few buttons go from one field to all fields. So I collect the data once, right? And then I can sort it.
Correct.
That's what we're doing, right?
Exactly.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, and this is doing a spatial overlay is how it's working. So it looks at the variety map and the area that one variety is covered or planted, and it cuts down through that area to the yield data and summarizes that data, and that's the report that we get there. So, all right, switching to the high-powered side of things. So we have 2 software platforms. I mentioned SMS already. This is kind of our high-powered power user type of tool. We do have growers using this, but usually not to its fullest extent. And then we have what's called Agfinity, which is more of what growers will use. This is more, our goal with Agfinity is to be able to do everything within 3 button pushes. So very simple, very lightweight, portable. I can run on any device. I can't quite do all the high-powered stuff, though, that I can do on SMS. SMS, I wouldn't guarantee it's going to be in 3 button pushes. Could be quite a few more than that. This is going to run on a more high-powered machine, like a laptop or a desktop system, but it's got a lot more horsepower, a lot more capabilities to it. So, going into some of these high-powered analysis tools, this is one of them that's from SMS. This will read data in from any system. It doesn't have to just be an Ag Leader system. So this is yield analysis, and what I'm looking at here is max yield. So, and I've crunched 4 different years of yield data into one map, and green here is showing me, well, all of these colors show me the max yield for this field across those 4 years. So the overall winner is the green, 267 in low 300s. So this is the maximum of the whole field, and then this is where I got the maximum yield out, right? Red is the bottom end, 100s into low 200s. So this is the maximum yield across those 4 years for the red area, but it's the lowest yielding part of that. Does that make sense? Anybody got uses for a map like that? Anybody use data like that? Yeah.
You get that out of SMS or what?
Yeah, that's from SMS.
Basic.
Yeah, advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Looks like y'all put some drainage in.
yeah, yeah, it's a great map for where drainage might, assuming that is the limiting factor. Might do a bit more digging to verify that, but yeah, that's a likely thing.
How many years can you put in?
I don't think there's a limit. I just did 4 on most of ours, but I wouldn't see why you couldn't do 10, 20. So yeah, good question. To me, and Kevin, I don't know if you've done anything like this, but this seems like a good yield goal type of data layer. So I might do a population prescription, or maybe some fertilizing, or like Walt said, some tile stuff there. There's a lot of good uses for something like this.
I mean, essentially, that's some people use CPUs or crop production units, and that's essentially you're making your own crop production units, and like based on that map, you got wet years, you got dry years. So if you're trying to decide where do I want to, go with a higher seeding rate or whatnot, that at least gives you a good idea where you ought to be. So then you can maybe save, not to cut out the agronomist, but if you're looking to save some money per acre, it's a lot cheaper to buy the SMS. SMS might not be cheap, but it's not expensive compared to $16 an acre or something you're paying an agronomist to give you the same information. So.
Yeah, so this is the best you've done in 4 years, is I guess the way to summarize this. So the best you've done in the red areas and the best you've done in the green areas. That's the summary. Another high-powered analysis is this is yield growth. So this shows, again, the same 4 years. The green areas is where I've improved yield up to 30 bushel per acre improvement. Red areas is where I've decreased yield down to 30 below on that. So hopefully we see more green than red here. That's a good trend, I would say. But again, those red areas might be areas where, hey, what's going on here? Why am I losing yield? The green areas might be good examples of what you've done right. What did we do that caused that to improve? So another good use for multiple years of yield data there. And then the last one I have here is the highest yielding year. And the way to look at this is in the red area, 2022. So 2022, that year produced the highest yield in this area. 2016 is the green. So 2016 won for highest yield in those green areas. That makes sense? So uncommon, I don't know if you guys have seen analysis like this or maps like this, but a little different way of looking at things, and can give you a different perspective and some good ways to go forward.
On those tips, how big's your data points?
You can set those, I believe those are 50 by 50 square foot, but you can change those to whatever resolution you want. What other kind of data would be helpful with a multiple year map like this?
What the weather pattern on that is.
Exactly. Good answer there. So SMS does keep track of this and downloads this from local weather stations automatically. So I like to print a weather report, and put it alongside maps like this. So on the right is 2024 in northeast Indiana. So we've got rain on top. The blue bars are rain events, and I can see how much rain I got on the dates. Then the black line is accumulated rain through the season. I think we're April 1st to the end of October. And then down here is, green line is growing degree days. Red line is stress degree days. I'm not as familiar with that term. Anybody heard that term before, stress degree days? Okay, maybe that's just a Iowa thing or something. I'm not sure about that. I pulled up 2012 which for most of Indiana was a drought year, just to kind of compare side by side there, you can see some differences. The scale on the rain here tops out at 20 on 2012 versus 25 on 2024 there. Figured there'd be more difference than that, but there are some differences.
That's the whole year, just the growing season.
April 1st through the end of October, and you can set what range you want to see on that. So, yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned it, basically it's, SMS can support, I don't know if I'll say it's the only one, but it's one of the very few that supports everybody's data. So whether you have Precision or John Deere or Case IH, you can pull it into SMS. So you don't have to have an Ag Leader screen to run SMS.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ag Leader is an independently owned company. We're not tied to any manufacturer, not owned by anybody. So, but we make our living off of being compatible and doing a lot of this type of stuff. So we have an interest in being as compatible with as many different brands as we can be. And so this is one of the results of that. That's all that I had for this morning. I'm going to be showing some more stuff, I think, after lunch is what Kevin has for the schedule. If you guys, I did want to emphasize again that to get this type of information, you do have to put a little bit of work into making sure you got good data. We talked about the planner maps. I would also say that you guys should be in the habit of once or twice a year getting your data organized. It's very common. You saw those AB lines from our farm that had to be cleaned up. It's common to have field names gets messed up. Somebody adds a field that was already there. All sorts of things. So, like you're doing maintenance on iron or any other part of your farm, just plan on doing maintenance on your data at least once a year. Now's a good time to do that. Just go through and find those mistakes, get them cleaned up so that the next season you're not dealing with a bunch of mess, and you pull into the field and you don't have a bunch of extra AB lines to sort through to get that field started. It just smooths out the season so much on that, and I know firsthand on that. So, yeah.
On your auto tracking borders when you're spraying, are you guys able to stay on the row in crop?
So through the field, not just borders, I assume.
Well, borders, when you're turning, are you guys able to keep them running over corn?
It depends on how sharp the curve is, because that's a big part of it. The sharper the curve, your machine dynamics start to take over if you got a pull type implement. So that's the biggest variable there. But in general, yeah, we can on our higher accuracy system.
So you might have to slow down to let it actually auto steer on the ends. So a little bit. So like I say, just where you can handle that, or obviously you see the curve coming up.
Yeah, and you may just have to grab a
Nobody's
hold of
system knows what's actually really coming up, and so you can plan where the system is just essentially reacting to the lines there. So.
Well, and the sharper the curve, if you're talking about a pull type planner or something that way, you've got a hinge point there. So anyways, there's some dynamics there. Yeah. I'm going to be floating around all day. If you guys have any Ag Leader data type of stuff, feel free to come up and I'll help you. Give you some pointers or whatever you need help with. I'd be happy to do that. And then any other questions, one-on-one type stuff, feel free to ask me. So, thank you for your attention.
You got your display back here, is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we've got the new display. I'm going to be talking about the new In-Command Go 16 and 10 displays after lunch here. But yeah, you can push buttons back there.